There's going to be a lot of going, a lot of coming, and a lot of staying here. And listen to Locked On Bama so you can find out who's doing what.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson is me. Jimmy Stein has him. This episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. I'll talk about Jase Medical here very shortly. Thank you for making us first listen. You guys are the absolute best. We love you so very much. And Jimmy, Alabama had a very eventful All-American game. It's not the Army All-American game anymore. It's just a regular All-American game. I don't know why the Marines don't get in on the action, but whatever. So Alabama got a couple of commitments yesterday. Weirdly, like they were the last two guys to commit. I was sort of hoping, because there was so much basketball on too. I wanted to watch the basketball too. And I was like, so now I got to sit through all of it to get to the end. Okay. But regardless, it was good news for Alabama. Daniel Hill from Meridian, Mississippi, a big bruiser, but also a relative speedster in the backfield, has committed to Alabama. He had two nice touchdowns yesterday. I mean, they weren't super long, but they were what I think Daniel Hill will be having at Alabama, a bunch of 2 to 10-yard touchdown runs where he runs a couple of folks over.
Yeah, I've always been on the Daniel Hill train. Now, look, my expectations aren't through the roof. He's not. I don't think this is Derrick Henry. I don't think so. I don't think this is I tell you, he's a little bit like B-Rob to me, a little bit Brian Robinson, who's a big physical back. I think he's a little bit like that. But really a couple of reasons why I was very excited about adding Daniel Hill to the running back room is look at his size versus the size of the other guys he's sharing the room with, right? Justice, Jam Miller, Richard Young, Kevin Riley. They're all literally about the same size. Riley might even be a little bit lighter than the other guys, but they're all literally like the same size in that 210 range, 205. They're not small backs, but they're not big backs. Daniel Hill is dramatically bigger. I think he's going to play at Alabama in the 230 range, which sounds like B-Rob, sounds like Najee. He's that size. Now, whether he's got their burst and long speed, I'm not sure. I think that's up for debate. One thing he can do exceptionally well, when I really started getting excited about him way back in the summertime, Luke, was he played 7-on-7 football and played wide receiver.
Yeah, he can.
And that's when I'm like I got excited about him. Then I watched clips of him running routes as a receiver and catching the ball like he's a receiver. And I'm like, man, this guy's got some real ball skills. And boy, what a weapon he will be catching the ball at his size. And obviously, he's a guy that if running back didn't work out, maybe you move him to H-back because he could be a weapon there. So I'm excited about Daniel Hill. I just want everyone's expectations not to be set at Derrick Henry. I mean, because I don't think he's that level of freak that Derrick is. But Daniel Hill will be a nice addition to the running back room. Look, you don't want 5 guys who all look and play the same. You got to mix it up. And the duo, adding him in at the same time as Kevin Riley makes that ideal thunder and lightning duo where you have the home run hitter and Kevin Riley, and then the move the chains and red zone guy that Daniel Hill should be.
I think that's a great point about the Derrick Henry thing, because we should get this out of the way. Derrick Henry is like a freak of all freaks. I mean, he's not even, he's barely human. I mean, he's some other alien life form. I mean, he's the all-time leading rusher in high school football history. He's the all-time leading rusher. Well, no, he's not. Najee Harris is now the all-time leading rusher in Alabama history, but he does have the all-time leading single season mark rushing in SEC history. He won a Heisman. He's been incredible in the NFL. He's probably headed for the Hall of Fame. If Daniel Hill doesn't do that, okay. But I'm saying that Daniel Hill, a comp for him is some kind of hybrid Najee, Derrick Henry. Because I will say this, while Derrick Henry had some nice screen pass moments at Alabama, I wouldn't consider him the same passing threat pass receiving threat that, say, Najee was. But if you watch Daniel Hill's highlights, some of them are him with a wheel route where he's catching a deep ball. Nate Frazier did that for an All-American game who was looking at Alabama. He's committed to Georgia. He ironically did it from a pass from Walker White, who committed to Auburn, who I liked. I thought Walker White showed out.
Good player
this week. Yeah, he looked good. But regardless, I think that it's okay to say, look, now this running back room is 5 deep, and I feel very confident. If you told me any one of them is starting, I would be confident. Weirdly, I'd probably be least confident in Richard Young right now, just because he has been there for a year. And when Justice got in, we know there's a thing about him that you can't put your finger on. Jam has got sort of again, I'm not saying he is this guy, but he's got sort of a Josh Jacobs vibe about him. To me, Jam does. Justice has a Mark Ingram vibe. Daniel Hill has a Derrick Henry vibe. And I would say Riley, just based off high school tape, I would say sort of Trent Richardson-y, maybe Trent, between Trent and Kenyon.
I like Kenyon Drake as a Kevin Riley because they're the track background. I like Kevin Riley and a Kenyon Drake comp. Makes sense to me. And I think we had Drake and Henry on the team at the same time, right? And it's that's why I like the combo. I'm not predicting that neither Kevin Riley nor Daniel Hill become a Heisman candidate. I don't think they'll be that level of player. But hey, it's about moving the chains and building a team. I think Riley and Daniel Hill help complete the running back room. And I'm excited about Richard Young. I think one difference between Young and those others, we've seen Justice Haynes, we've seen Jam Miller, we've seen both of them look impressive at times. We hadn't really seen Richard Young. I mean, I know he got a handful of carries, a garbage time, but not anything of significance. But I think the staff is pretty high on Richard Young. It'll be a real interesting spring, with that running back group because there's so much new. Jason Roydell have kind of been the show for a couple of seasons, but now they'll turn it over entirely. And I think just on seniority, Jam Miller will be running back 1 and Justice Haynes will be running back 2, trying to eat into those carries. And I bet he does. And I think we'll ultimately have a Jam and Justice show with Richard Young filling in when they need some oxygen on the sideline.
I like that show. What time's that show coming on, Jimmy? Is it a sitcom or is it
August 31st? Is the debut is August 31st from what I hear.
Okay, great.
ESPN.
Is it a dramedy? Is it on Netflix?
I hope it's not too much drama against Western Kentucky.
I don't want a drama comedy. I want
a comedy.
In a shootout.
I hope it's a comedy against Western Kentucky.
All right. When we come back, we're going to talk about another commitment Alabama got, and this one's a big one, and he had an interception in the All-American game. But I need to tell everybody about, no, not Jase Medical. I am going to talk about Jase Medical here in just a bit, but I am right now going to talk about FanDuel because the NFL regular season is wrapping up. It's wrapping up today, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's number one sports book right now. New customers get 150 smacks in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. You cannot beat that with a stick. That's $150 in bonus bets, whether you win or whether you lose. The app is so easy to use, and there's so many different ways to bet. You can do the live same-game parlay. That is so much fun. I can't tell you how much fun I've had with that. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays. And there's so many more ways to get in on the action with FanDuel. You can also check out the NBA and college basketball. And look, the national championship is tomorrow. I know I don't have to remind y'all because we should be in there. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. And make your first bet a layup or a chip shot field goal or a home run or whatever kind of sports analogy you want. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. So Alabama got another commitment in Jase Mincey, the number 3 defensive back, according to On3. Alabama's defensive back class pretty doggone stout now. I love what Zay Mincey's mother had to say about Zay Mincey committing to Alabama. She was so high on it. She basically said, "Look, this is the place that if you want to be developed, this is the place to go." And the final visit from Nick Saban is really what turned the tide in this thing. The mother said Xavier wants to go to the next level, and Alabama is going to take him there. She didn't say Alabama is like the best option. She said Alabama's going to get him there. And I love that. I think that's wonderful. And I saw there is an interview out there on Twitter if you want to go see it with Xavier Mincey's mom. And regardless, you can go check it out. But he had an interception in the All-American game. Looked very, very good. He did get beat, I think, one time against Jeremiah Smith, the number one player in the country. He's going to beat some people. That guy's really good. Look, I love Ryan Williams. I wouldn't trade Ryan Williams for anybody, but Jeremiah Smith's pretty doggone good.
Won't be the last time, if you people listen to the show, y'all are football fans, so won't be the last time you hear Jeremiah Smith's name. Today's show won't be the last time.
Okay.
Zay Mincey, I'm thrilled about this. To me, he's a legitimate near 5-star. If he's not a 5-star, he's in the ballpark. 6'3" with cornerback skills. That's just nuts. Kyrie Jackson like that a little bit, who had a good year at Oregon, is going to play in the NFL. What I love a lot of things about Mincey. Start with that length, and that length means he can play any position back there. I mean, he can play corner. He might be a perfect fit for nickel corner at the star spot. He could also clearly at 6'3", and with those long arms and that range, he can obviously be a safety too. But my feeling is he's going to start out at cornerback, and he completes what is a fantastic DB group at Alabama. You throw him in with Jalen Mbakwe, Zabian Brown, Jameer Grimsley. I just saw a photo of Jameer Grimsley the other day, and I'm like, well, here's the most underrated kid in the class. And I was just looking at a photo. Drake Kirkpatrick, who I think is the most talked about, underrated player in the whole group. Peyton Woodyard, who it's not going to surprise me if he's a starter right off the bat at the dime back position, the 6 DB. This is just one of the great defensive back groups of all time at Alabama, which is saying a lot under Nick Saban. And let me tell you, you signed 7 guys all coming in at the same time, 7 freshmen, and with as many openings as Alabama has, do not be surprised if one of these freshmen ends up in a starting position, either cornerback, the money spot, safety. Don't rule it out. There's too many of them. They're all good. But Zay, boy, 6'3" with cornerback skills, near 5-star type talent. Very excited to pick him up at the very end. And who knows, we're going to re-rank, on threes. Final rankings aren't out. Other services' final rankings aren't out. When they recrunch all these numbers, Luke, this Alabama class could finish number 1.
He did win I think the Alpha Dog. I don't know if they call them Alpha Dogs, whatever, like the MVP of the day of one of the practices at the All-American game. So that's always a big deal. And he went up against some pretty doggone good receivers. It wasn't the best collection of quarterbacks. The better quarterbacks, I think, were in the Under Armour All-American game. But this All-American game had some nice quarterbacks. Nobody that really Walker White was the best, I thought. But
it wasn't a great QB class nationally. It really wasn't.
Well,
not like
especially,
most years. I think it was a down year.
And I really do believe this. This isn't just homerism. I believe Julian Sayin is the best of the bunch. But I think what makes the class, what takes the shot off it a little bit is Dylan Riola's precipitous drop. He was like the unanimous number 1, and now he's like number 2 or 3 or 4 in some services. I mean, Julian Sayin's better. DJ Lagway won Gatorade National Player of the Year. Congratulations to him. He's committed to Florida. But I still would take Julian Sayin. And what I saw in the All-American game, Lagway's good, but he's got a lot of work to do. I'm so disappointed we didn't get to see Julian Sayin in the All-American game or the Under Armour game. He didn't make it. And that's sort of the risk you take sometimes when you go to practices. There was some travel issue coming back from the Rose Bowl or whatever. And it's just part of the risk you take. But I'm disappointed I didn't get to see him. I'm happier that he has been practicing with Alabama. And so I'm fine with that trade-off. Want to throw this out there because we're not going to talk about it in the next segment. We're going to talk more about who's going and staying. But I do want to give a shout-out to the Alabama basketball team. They go to Vanderbilt and win. Nate Oates is now 10-0 in Nashville. That's pretty doggone remarkable. Now, he hadn't played in Vandy for all those games. I'm talking about 10-0 in terms of playing in the SEC tournament in Nashville and then playing at Vandy as well. And Nashville has not been very kind to Alabama historically in terms of especially going to Vanderbilt's gymnasium. So you go there and yes, this team's going to frustrate you, y'all. I was higher on this team at the beginning of the year. I've tempered my expectations, but here's what I feel like about Alabama basketball. I feel like things are going to get better. I think eventually playing that arduous schedule we played is going to pay off. I think it's all part of a learning process. And in the end, Alabama went on the road and got a win in a conference that is one of the toughest in the country. And yes, it's against a bad team, and they were a 12-point favorite, and they didn't cover, and I understand all that. I'll take that. Just give me a 1-point win at Vanderbilt every year for the rest of my life, and I'll take it.
I think I'm not going to be spoiled or ruined by Nate Oates' incredible success at Alabama. I don't expect a Final Four level team each year by any means. There hadn't been in the Final Four just yet, but I think if we keep recruiting like we are, there will be one. But I'm impressed anytime that an Alabama and schools like Alabama with Alabama's basketball history, anytime an Alabama can compete to win the SEC, like be in the mix to win the league and make the NCAA tournament and make the NCAA tournament with a chance to win games, not just, oh, we're so lucky to be in. Hey, when we lose in the first round, I'm just glad to be a part of it. No. I think if you make the NCAA tournament with a chance to win a game or two, I mean, what more are we asking? So I think this team will be fine, and I think this tournament can achieve those things. I'm with you, Luke, in terms of tempering expectations. In terms of if you came into this season thinking, "Hey, this is the Final Four year. This team's going to match Alabama's all-time run and make it to an Elite Eight," maybe, but I'm not expecting that. But I do think they'll make the tournament, and it'll be a fun March.
Yeah, I think they will definitely make the tournament. We're just going to have to take, I think this term, take care of business. It feels like everybody says that. We're going to take care of business at home.
Standing on business. That's what the kids are saying right now.
It's not
stand on business.
And, I think it starts this Tuesday night, 6:00 against the South Carolina team that beat Mississippi State. Mississippi State was favored in that game in Columbia. Now, let me say this. Only South Carolina and who is the other team that won at home? All right, LSU went on the road and beat A&M. Kentucky goes on the road and beats Florida. Auburn destroys Arkansas at home. Worst home loss in Arkansas history at Bud Walton. That's a big deal. Alabama goes on the road and wins. Georgia goes on the road and wins. So who am I missing, Jimmy?
Tennessee
beat Ole Miss.
Tennessee beat Ole Miss on the road, right?
No. That was at Tennessee.
That was at UT.
But
okay.
Only 2 of the 5 games were won by the home team. And in most of those games, now, I mean, Alabama being the exception, Auburn was a slight favorite over Arkansas. Alabama was a big favorite. But, I mean, A&M was favored. Florida was favored. Missouri was favored. So 3 upsets on the road already. And what it tells me is, man, pack a lunch. And I know that's what Nate Oates is good about. The hard hat. When I think hard hat, I think also a lunch pail. So I think this team is going to have to pack a lunch Tuesday night. South Carolina's going to – they're not good. They're not a great shooting team. But they did beat a pretty salty Mississippi State squad that plays very good defense. So let's go. Let's have a good crowd. Let's have a great raucous crowd for Tuesday night because, these are the games you cannot lose if you do want to make the tournament. So, Jimmy, when we come back, we're going to talk about some who's going, who's coming in, and some potential surprises that are just interesting. For now, though, I need to tell everybody about Jace Medical. So happy to have Jace Medical back as a sponsor here with Locked On Bama. I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life, but can we talk just for a minute about prepping for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. This is scary stuff, people. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if, Sela, my 7-year-old daughter, or one of my other kids got sick while a supply chain issue kept them from life-saving medication they need. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jase Medical. I do have the Jase case. The Jase case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others. This stuff can happen to any of us, y'all. It does not discriminate. Visit jasemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared today. Trust me on that. Go to jasemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON for $20 off your order. Okay, the comings and goings and surprises for the University of Alabama. It looks like Jase McClellan is going to go pro. And for a minute there were rumors this weekend he could end up, somewhere like an Ole Miss or something. But it sounds like he's going pro. That has not been 100% confirmed, but it looks like he's going pro. Roydell Williams will be transferring out of the University of Alabama. I love Roydell. You and I have talked about this. I thought Roydell might be able to have a Brian Robinson type year if he were to come back. I didn't think he'd have as good a year as Brian Robinson did that year he came back, but I thought he'd be I thought they were similar. At the same time, Jimmy, I hate to put it this way because I love Roydell Williams. And I know we're always infatuated with the next thing versus the thing we know. But let me put it this way to the listener too, and just ask yourself this. Let's say we got 6 running backs, right? Kevin Riley, Daniel Hill, Jam Miller, Justice Haynes. Let's say Roydell was there. And then who?
Roydell would have been the 6th.
Who?
Roydell would have been the 6th.
Who's the one I'm missing, though? I didn't name one.
The backs are Justice, Jam, Richard Young, Kevin Riley.
Richard Young.
Yeah, Richard.
Okay, so there's a 6. Now, if you say, Luke, here's the deal. One of them has to go for next year. They just have to. And I think that was kind of the situation. One of them has to go for next year. Who are you picking? And it's a cruel business. And this is cruel to say because I love Roydell Williams and I want him on my team. If you were on my team, I'd be thrilled to death. But if you said one of them has to go, my answer would probably be Roydell. And I feel dirty saying that. But right. At the same time, it's a business now, and we all know this. And I think that's the smartest business decision for both parties. I think Roydell can go somewhere. If this is what he really wants to do, go somewhere else and show what he can truly do. If he feels like he's got more to offer, I think he could go somewhere, be the guy, and maybe show NFL scouts. The downside of that is if you don't go pro now, then you're obviously taking some more tread off your tires. But whatever. I personally believe, and I could be off. I'm not the expert here. I'm doing educated guesses here, people. And again, I feel dirty even saying this, but I personally believe the 5 other running backs, they might have more potential.
Yeah. I think we know what Roydell is. We've seen him for 4 years. And while I agree with you, I think Roydell makes a team better because he's such a team guy. He's such a great guy and a leader. But we've seen Roydell, and I would describe what we've seen from Roydell the last 4 years as he's good. He's a good player, and that's why teams like Florida State brought him in for an official visit this weekend. There will be other big-time programs that bring in Roydell because he's a good player. I also think that what little we've seen from Jam Miller and Justice Haynes, they can be great. They might be great. And I think it's time that we show off and give Justice and Jam those opportunities because I think they may be great. Whereas Roydell is good and certainly good is far from an insult. Roydell's a good player. I think Justice and Jam may be great, and it's just time. Jam will be a true junior. Justice will be a sophomore. They're both likely 3-year players. In my opinion, Jam may be so good next year, Luke, that that's it. He might be show off and then off for the NFL. Just one more season. Justice has that same level of ability, I believe. So I think it's just moving on from good to let's give great a chance. Mute.
First mute
first
issue
mute of 2024.
in months.
First mute of 2024. First one in a while. That's pretty good. Hey, I did it on a show the other day, and of course invoked your name when I did.
Good. That is good. You should.
I did do it on a show the other day. Yeah.
I had, by the way, that just reminded me, I hadn't worn my "You're on Mute" T-shirt in a while. I need to do that. So, but again, don't you do feel a little guilty saying that? Don't you?
Oh yeah, because Roy Dell's good, and one of the things we do as fans, and I read more message board posts than anybody alive because I'm on the biggest. I help run the biggest message board in Alabama world, and check it out if you like big message boards. We got the biggest, most populated message board in the Alabama internet world. Come check it out. So nobody reads more posts than me. And about the worst thing I think some of the fans do is they under regard our good players.
Yeah.
The good players, not the great players, the good players. And because they always want to move on to the shiny new toy. They'd rather look at whatever's behind curtain number. If they've seen a player and they think he's only good or average, they can't wait to discard and look at whatever's behind curtain number 1, whatever it is. And I'm the opposite of that. And I think coaches are the opposite of that. They appreciate good because they know, hey, what's behind the curtain might not be good. But Roy Dell is good. And what I like about Roy Dell the most is tough kid, man. He plays tough, and that's contagious. So he's good. I wish him the best. I will root for Roy Dell wherever he goes, even if he goes to a program I don't like, frankly.
Yeah, and he could go to some. I mean, who knows? The rumor was Jase Medical to Ole Miss, but I think he's going to end up declaring for the draft. Meanwhile,
Jace is ready for the NFL. That's another player I think our fans under regard. I mean, it's funny to me if Alabama fans, I don't know about Jace. The NFL's like, we'll take him.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Jermaine Burton declares for the draft. I think I think this is the best for all parties. I think we're all good with it. Jermaine. I like Jermaine a lot, but Jermaine has done some things that hadn't made Alabama proud, that probably hadn't made him proud, but I think we need to walk a mile in his shoes sometimes and understand that, look, I appreciate Jase McClellan made some big catches in his time. We caught a big touchdown against Auburn in the Iron Bowl, caught huge passes against Ole Miss this year that sort of kickstarted Alabama's resurgence in the season, caught a touchdown in the SEC title game. So, yeah, Jermaine Burton
he had a huge game against A&M, 200 yards, right?
Huge game against A&M. So, I mean, I feel like but I think at the same time it's time let's move on.
4 full years. I mean, 4 full years as a first-team player. 2 at Georgia and 2 at Alabama. I mean, Jermaine, it's time. It's time for the NFL for him. That's just time. I'm not saying he timed out. He could have come back, but why? I mean, he is what he is, and you go to college to build a career for yourself. With Jermaine, it was just time. 4 full years as a starter, so that's that.
Let me throw one more thing in there before we get out of here, Jimmy. You and I have been saying for a while, Terrion Arnold really wanted to come back to Alabama. I 100% believe this. In fact, I know it to be true. Also know that I appreciate Nick Saban essentially telling him, hey, you're a first rounder, dude. I just looked at a mock draft. They got him going to Green Bay at like number 14 or 15. You got to go. I hate saying that because I would love Terrion Arnold to come back and continue to be the Gump that he is. But at the same time, you got to go take care of your thing. You got to get your bag, bro. And I'm with you. And Terrion is a fantastic ambassador for the University of Alabama. Everybody get behind him. Nobody be mad at him for leaving. This is what's best for him and his future and his family and his future family. So, and I appreciate Nick Saban being 100% honest with him too.
Yeah, it could be first cornerback taken in the draft, perhaps. And the first round means everything because it's guaranteed money. It's a guaranteed money, and when you're drafted and not in the first round, then you don't get guaranteed money in every instance. So, but in the first round, it's a guarantee that you get the guaranteed money, and guaranteed means everything. Guaranteed means, hey, you suffer a career-ending injury in the first NFL game you play in, you get your whole contract. So so you've got to do that unless there are very odd circumstances otherwise. And I think with Terrion, he wanted to come back and he loved playing at Alabama, and he wanted to come back and play with his best friend, Jalen Milroe, and continue to be part of the Alabama nation. He would have loved that, but he could not, for the sake of him and his family, walk away from that. And in the end, he did the logical smart, standing on business, how we started the show. He's standing on business. He stood on business.
Stood on his business. Yes. I think I stood on some business earlier this morning when I let my dog out. It was the wrong kind of business to be standing on by accident.
Stood on your dog's business?
Stood on my dog's business. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.